All right, so what I would like to do is I'm going to go through the presentation. It's going to take about maybe 15, 20 minutes. There's going to be a couple of opportunities in here to just kind of take note where I'm going to encourage some thinking and just to a place to maybe make note some questions that you might want to ask. But if we could just gather at the end with questions, I think that'll just keep the flow going. So how to set yourself apart in a saturated market, really changing the way sales has been done, the way marketing has been done, and moving yourselves or your company to that of a trusted advisor. And I'll go into what I mean about being a trusted advisor in just a second. You know what it's like when you're doing presentations and you have the little sidebar Zoom window? I have to keep moving it so I can see what it is I'm needing to read. So our agenda, we're going to start with looking at the key takeaways. There's a couple of different areas that we're going to cover in this, starting with why now, the 4 levels of selling, the new fundamentals of selling, and creating a level 4 presence. And as we get a couple of slides in, you'll understand what I'm meaning by the level 4 presence. All right, so the takeaways. What you're going to be able to walk away with at the end of this presentation is the understanding that there's 4 levels of selling now. And we're going to take a look at what's included in each one and how to get you to that level 4. We're going to look at the new fundamentals of selling, which are creating value and capturing mind share of your dream clients. And then how do we even create that level 4 trusted advisor presence? And let's start with why now, because this is something that has really come to light. Recent studies indicate that 67% of most buyers have already done some sort of online investigation and research into what their solution might be. Now, it's a different scenario if people are not aware of their problem. I'm talking about people now who have an awareness that there's something not quite right, and they haven't actually done anything about it yet, but they are researching it. So what we want to do now is we want to provide a different experience for clients because they're informed, but what they do need is usually assistance in making a decision. And there's also, we got to call it out. People are starting, as we see interest rates rising and supply chain issues, people are starting to get comfortable living with the status quo. Sometimes, unless the outcome is big enough, they're going to be staying where they are. So, we want to make sure that we're really addressing this ahead of time, going in. And I know for people who are in real estate, for example, with changing interest rates and everything else going on, being ahead of the curve on this and actually talking to your customers, facing that status quo, is really this kind of approach is going to give you a lot of leverage. Because people sometimes want to stay the safest with what is the safest. So looking at sales and these 4 different levels of selling, as we know, has evolved a lot over the years. If we think about what the used car salesman used to be, it falls on this scale in here as well. But there has always been, traditionally, it's been very asymmetrical, where there's been an imbalance of power, where the sellers have held an uneven amount of information. But now with people being able to buy online or research online, people have access to information. So just going through the traditional legacy methodologies is not enough. So let's take a look at what these 4 different levels are. So level 1, my light just died. It's a sign. Level 1 is where we're just talking about product. And here it's when the product is good enough. And think about commodities, whether it's rice or beans, or maybe more manufacturing, you're thinking of aluminum extrusion or something like that. There's nothing really different about it. It's just you're going and buying something. I have a need for this rice, I'm just going to go buy the rice. It doesn't really matter. It is, right? It's just filling a gap. The next level is service, which is where people are talking and they're providing excellent customer service. They're following through. They're building rapport. It's something that sets them apart, but everybody expects it. There's nothing really new here. The number three, level three, is businesses results. And this is where most people spend 90% of their time. They're talking to their clients, they're doing discovery calls, they're asking about problems. It falls into what is known as the challenger sale or gap selling, where they're identifying a gap where people are now where they want to be. And they spend a lot of time justifying that return on investment. That's where 90% of the people are. And 90% of and a lot of the people, I wouldn't say 90%, but a lot of people are still looking at that as being the sales experience. The challenge with this, though, is that if everybody is doing it, you're no longer different than anybody else. This is what everybody is doing. You run the risk of becoming a commodity. And if you go into, um, um, say, Terry, you're dealing with people who are doing mindset. If they've talked to somebody else and everybody's talking about just that gap where they are, where they want to be, there's nothing really different setting you apart. Of course, this is no reflection of your business. I'm just using it as an example. Levels 1, 2, and 3 are legacy approaches to selling and to marketing as well, right? Where people are shifting towards people who are really wanting to inspire their customers and they want to win the mindset and capture business from people, is they're going in as a strategic partner and a trusted advisor. They're helping people see things differently. They're helping people understand things that they may not even be aware of. So it's a shift. We're not coming in trying to reach up and grab someone's business. We're coming in at a pure level saying, hey, you know what? I see you over here. There's a concept that I use called show me, you know me, which is where you demonstrate to your customer, in real estate, you would demonstrate to your customer you understand their marketplace and what they're going through. So we do that. We're going to show them that we know them, but we're also going to say, you know what? Here's something that you're probably not thinking about, and that probably none of their competitors are thinking about either. So when we start doing this approach, what we're going to do, and this is what I was just talking about, we don't necessarily want to go in and start with just talking about the product, just talking about our service, just talking about outcomes. I mean, that's kind of a no-no anyhow, is that we don't want to be talking about ourselves. What we do want to be doing is we want to be sharing insight. We want to be sharing information, value that is going to put us on a peer level with the customers. That's where we're going to start. Keep moving the screen here. So let's talk about the trusted advisor, what that actually means. Most people, and I'm sure everybody on this call, has been doing their business for a while. There's a really excellent book called The Business of Excellence, and it's written by David C. Baker, and I can give you a link to it or repeat the name later on. But it talks about how when we've had experience doing something over a while, you start recognizing patterns, trends. You can see things that other people cannot. And this is how we really start connecting with people on a different level, is that we start helping them create a vision, a future that they don't even know exists. We help them process information differently. We help them look at other influences that could be affecting outcomes. And in addition to making change or dealing with the status quo, we show them not only the cost of not taking action, but how that's going to affect everything, not just now, but in the long term, and how they can start internalizing it and breaking it apart in different ways. And you're going to talk about that based on your experience. So I put in here an example of, creating a future that people don't even know exists. Both Sarah Blakely, who created Spanx, Steve Jobs, who created the iPhone, they took a look at what was going on in the market. They saw an opportunity and they created something based on what people didn't even know that they needed. So there's lots of opportunities, I think, in most markets to be able to do that, is to really start looking at those customer relationships differently. Instead of again trying to sell and win that business, go in as an advisor, someone that they can use as a sounding board, and also to get perspective on things. What's interesting about this, and I've been using this for a long time now, and it's a different type of conversation. Most sales is based on pain, right? Focus on the customer's pain, which is great if they have an existing need and they've fully identified with it and they've done that research, they're there. But if you're trying to win new business, everybody else is focused on the pain. So talk about solutions based on your experience that already address the pain. We don't need to go into depth. And I know everybody's heard these expressions, especially doing online marketing, is, twist the knife, really draw out the customer pain. We don't need to do that. If you're looking to create that different type of relationship with your customer, you really want to look at, okay, I see your pain over there. I know that this pain comes up. I know what's going to affect it. This is how we can work through it. The return on investment to everything else will be part of that conversation. You still have to do numbers, the levels 1, 2, and 3, but you want to start with level 4. So how do you actually go about doing that? So the framework for doing this is to really start thinking about your business. What are the trends you see coming up? Like if you think about real estate right now, where do you see this going with interest rates changing, with people starting to look at their money? Are they willing to invest? Are they wanting to hold on to their homes? I think it was Arsini who does a SaaS marketing or management software. Correct me on that later if I'm not correct. But it is a SaaS. Is that what it is, Arsini?
It's project management for startups.
Right, project management, but it is a SaaS service, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, SaaS in general is so saturated. So being able to talk about it rather than just the features, the benefits, the outcomes, being able to talk about it like, you know what, we know what happens when you're doing this project management, what the implications are if they're not held correctly. And this is what we see that's going to be happening in your market in 2-3 years. I'm going to use an example of if we think about what happened with COVID in the supply chain, a lot of contract manufacturers, a lot of manufacturing facilities, they were losing people. People were not able to go in and be on the factory floor. There were companies who have been through these kinds of examples before, these kind of issues before, robotics. They were going in and saying, you know what, you may not have people back on the floor for 6 months, but we can put in this robotic production line within 3 months, that type of thing, right? So it's when you start seeing these things happen in the marketplace, it does take some, you have to be on top of the trends and things you see developing. When you see these kinds of things happening, have conversations, take those newsletters, take those articles to your customers and saying, look, this is what we see happening. We predict that this is something that's going to affect you. This is how it's going to affect you. This is our recommendations on it. They may not be wanting to act on it right way if they've already got systems, places, processes, all of it already in place. But what it does is it sets you up as a different type of vendor and a different type of solution, which is going to set you apart. The next time someone comes in, if they're not approaching them like that, they're going to be, well, why aren't you talking about this kind of thing that, Nick brought in and was talking to us about as far as the housing market? Why are you not talking to us about this? Right. So once they know that, they can never unknow that. Once you've made those kinds of conversations and connections with people, you will be the benchmark that they compare everybody else to. So that's what I love about this process. It's a different kind of conversation. Okay, so back to the framework. Think about the trends and things that you see happening. Again, use your experience, things that if you look at it, it's like, when you've been doing business for a while, it's really easy to forget how much you actually do know. But those things that you're just like, oh yeah, that's happening. I know what's going to happen there. Make note of those things and go talk to your audiences about that. The implications. How will it affect your clients? Not only financially, but thinking about the mental, the emotional, the physical. Everybody who's working or creating or they're wanting to address projects or mindset, it's not just the immediate, it's how is it going to affect my relationship with my family? How's it going to affect my ability to take vacations? How's it going to affect my staff? How's it going to affect my vendor relations, right? So go a little bit deeper with what it is the implications are going to be. And then go through all of that and really consolidate the type of advice you feel that your customers are going to be able to benefit from. Which brings us to our first activity. You don't need to do this now, but it is something that you can do as a takeaway is, think about those areas of expertise you have. The other things that people are not thinking about. And how can you create something that's a little bit different that's going to get your customer to change how it is that they're thinking. And these are the reasons why you want to do it. Because these are the new fundamentals of selling and marketing. And it's really to create value. We see it all the time when people are talking about creating content and valuable content. So it's not always just the how to do something or the why to do something. It's when we can get those customers, whether it's in conversations, when we can get them to see things that they're not even able to see. Right. So every time we can get them to kind of challenge their status quo, that's a really, really good thing. Because what we do is we end up capturing mind share. Going back to once you know something, you can never unknow it. So let's just dive right into creating value and what that looks like. So the type of content you need. So this is not just online social media kind of content, but it's conversations we have too. It's whether we're out networking or if it's doing presentations. If people still do presentations or speaking engagements, we want to talk about why people need to change. Provide them proof of why change is a good thing now when they want to consider it, the things that it's going to help them avoid or change, provide them with facts and figures. Go to the Harvard Business Review, go to, Forbes or any of the different of the sources that you have. Give them things that are going to make them go, huh. There's so many resources available and you don't have to do it from the point of view as like, oh, this is what they say in the Harvard Business Review. Give your perspective on it. Say, look, these guys, these experts are saying this about this. This is how I think it can affect your business based on what my experience has been. Right? Really leverage your experience or your desire to help people. Even if you're new in business and you haven't been doing it for a while, there's opportunity to leverage your passion for it or just have those kinds of conversations. So sharing your views and values matching up with what your expertise is. I'm going to share a little tip here. This is something that I learned a while ago, which has been really helpful, is depending on who you're selling to. I think Arsini, if you're selling SaaS, there's going to be more than one person involved usually in that decision. And it's the same with real estate as well. It's not always vertically who we sell to in an organization, whether it's the CEO or the VP of sales or something like that. It's the owner of the problem because they're going to be the ones who are going to influence the internal conversations. So those are the people that you're going to want to make sure you have those kind of conversations with as far as influencing how they feel about things or their perspective on things. So they can take that and go have those internal conversations. Really getting your buyers empowered so that they can go create value and champion your solution. And this is also that we can capture mind share. Mind share is interesting. And I love talking about mind share because mind share is our ability to influence how how people see things and how they process information. If we start thinking about, we start buying into ideologies, right? We start buying into what we see happening in the market and where people are going with different trends, those kinds of things. Getting ahead of the curve and being able to share perspective, having people think differently about it, it really starts shaking up how they see things. People don't necessarily know what they don't know. Where I see this having a lot of impact, and this is going to be really helpful for those of you in real estate, I see particularly this happening, is people have associated beliefs that influence their decision making, right? So when you can share things that tap into those beliefs that are actually that trigger decision making. So selling my home, what does that mean to me? It could mean a lot of things. Um, it can mean instability. It could mean, whoo, I'm actually cashing out, and this is a great thing. My kids are going to lose their childhood home. Ooh, I can finally travel, and I'm free of all of these things. So really, when we start tapping into, if you combine the information you have and can attach that to those underlying buying triggers that people have, what it's going to allow them to do or avoid, that's when you start capturing mind share. So when you can create the value and you can create mind share through your ability as a trusted advisor, it puts you in a completely different point of conversation with your audience. And I kind of incorporated these last slides with what I've already talked about, developing your trusted advisor presence. Let's just start at level 4. Let's just start having conversation. I use let's because it's a collective here. We just start having conversations with people at a level that we're a peer and we're going in and we're showing them something that they're not aware of. Again, we're not reaching up. We have the confidence to say, you know what? I've been doing this for a while. This is what I see happening. I want you to know about this. It really makes for great cold calls as well, like for great calling script. Hi, it's Cynthia calling from Remax. Do you have a couple of minutes that I would love to share some industry insight with you that, what may affect your decision to buy a home or sell your home? People are more receptive, one for permission-based asking or for permission-based, calling like that, but also offering something of value rather than, hey, do you want to sell your home and this, or do you want a market evaluation? There's nothing wrong with that, but that's what everybody else is doing. So we create a strong and informed opinion and a point of view as to why your client should change and consider you as the person they want to work with. So we continue to seek out and get new ideas and insights and thoughts that you can share with your clients and keep them ahead of their competitors, right? Even if it's getting them out of their own way. Sometimes that comes up a lot. People get in their own way, right? So again, it goes back to that resistance to change, the status quo, what's comfortable is, or what's known is comfortable, and that resistance to change. But sometimes that really works in it doesn't work in people's favor as well. So the more you can share with people, the better. And that's it. And now let's just jump. Oh, wait a sec. I was going to say, so if you want to read more about this, where some of this came from, these ideas as well, here's a couple of resources which I can share. Eat Their Lunch by Anthony Iannarino. He's amazing. Met him a few times. He's written lots of books on sales, The Art of Impossibility, and The Business of Expertise. And I'm going to, stop sharing. There we go.
Awesome. That was amazing.
Thank you.
The best part from sales and marketing point of view was that you executed everything you talked about in your whole presentation too. So you could really tell that you've practiced.
I've presented this a couple of times. Mind you, it's been a couple of, okay, so here, full disclosure, it's been a couple of weeks. or a couple of months since I last presented it. And it's so freaking hot in my house right now. Literally before this, I was sitting in my room with the air conditioning and going, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? Anyhow.
Well, it was
thank
flawless.
you. Thank you. I'd love to hear some takeaways and questions, or any kind of the thoughts from your industry that anybody might be thinking that they can share with their customers.
Oh, hi, it's Renata. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm in my car right now driving to the Fountainhead. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can, Renata.
Oh, wonderful. That was an amazing presentation. Everything was spot on. Such a great detail. And, when you're going through real estate sales, because I'm an ambassador with the Floyd Wickman program, having gone through it 3 times, and now I've helped to teach the program to newer agents or agents who want to do well. And a lot of it is, I find that it is like fear-based. So essentially like, if you don't sell now, you're never going to get the price you want. And, essentially that none of that matters. Well, all that matters is what is their purpose? What is their why? Like if they can't find it,
We're losing you, Renata.
home, or if they can't make the move, none of the numbers
I feel like it's such a good question too.
Yeah.
anything else makes a difference. When I like what you said about permission as saying, and I'm like, oh, sorry, can you hear? Sorry, okay, well, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll get back to you. Okay, can you hear me now? No, okay, sorry about that, guys. Must be the internet here.
No, we can hear you now. We can hear you now, Renata.
Try unmuting and saying your question again, because it sounded really good.
Oh, okay. Hi. Oh, yes. So, in terms of permission based, quite often we have new listings, and we'll go call the neighbors and say, "Hi, just wanted to let you know that your neighbor just listed their house, and would you go back and say, can I give you a little bit of information? Like, do you recommend doing that, or just go right into it?"
So that's a great question. And you know what? The market is saturated with people doing that. Can't even tell you how many times my neighbors have had their roof redone or have their lawns done, because it seems like, almost every day there's someone knocking at my door saying, "Oh, we sold a house," or we did your neighbor's lawn," or "We did this," or "We did that." Right. So you know what? If you're phoning to say, I would actually rather take the approach of, there's a lot of activity happening in your neighborhood. This is what we see happening. Is this something that's of interest to you? Right? This is what it's allowing people to do. This is how people are benefiting from it. Is that something that you'd be interested in hearing about?
Great advice. Thank you very much. That makes sense. That will change my calls a little bit. So I appreciate that after 13 years, there's always something new you can learn, right?
You know what? Absolutely. And I'm still learning every day too. Absolutely. Thank you, Renata. Great question.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Cynthia? I just have somebody here at reception I got to tend to. Other than that, I'll be right back.
Hey, Terry, when are we going shopping?
Anytime.
So I would love to hear from anybody else's perspective, like things that they're seeing happening in the marketplace or in your marketplace. Terry, Arsini, like we know SaaS is saturated. Like, was there anything in here that came up for you that you?
Yeah, it definitely totally makes sense. We found a similar kind of insight by brute forcing through the saturated market, so to speak. So we found that we basically need to not to show that the product is different, but why the product is different. So that comes from experience that we had as project managers in the past. So all these things that we've learned as people, and then we brought this expertise to others as in like face-to-face conversations. So we baked in all these things into the product itself. So I guess the hardest part for SaaS with landing pages and no direct sales is when is building the relationship in the top of the funnel where you can become that trusted advisor, I guess.
I think starting with building the relationship as the trusted advisor. Honestly, I literally make calls just talking to people about these things. Like, just, you know what, this is what I see happening. I mean, particularly now where people are really watching how they're spending their money. So any company that has like a sales team is just like, you know what, we know that people's budgets are getting tighter. So how you're spending your money, what you're investing in, your coaching, your processes, things like that. Let's have a conversation about that before you start doing anything else. So I actually kind of almost start with like, don't spend any money until you have this kind of insight and information.
Yeah,
Awesome.
sure. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Talking to people first and then seeing how it can be reflected in the copy on the landing page and stuff like this.
Oh, nice. Love that. Are you on LinkedIn mostly?
You mean reaching out to people?
Yeah. Do you use LinkedIn?
No, I use, so it's for startup founders. So they hang out mostly on Reddit or places like Y Combinator news forum, stuff like this.
There's a huge SaaS community on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
As well. Just saying, just sharing.
I'd like to utilize Reddit a little more. I feel like I'm missing out on the Reddit scene.
There's so many platforms.
Yeah, Reddit is weird. They have a lot of all these subreddits, and even for startups, there's a whole lot of them. But some of them have a lot of people, but they seem dead, and the threads there are weird. And sometimes you just get into the wrong place and think it's absolutely ridiculous platform. But sometimes you find the right subreddit, and people actually are very active and engaged there.
I'll check it out. Does anybody have any other? Oh, go ahead, Cynthia.
I was just going to say, Terry, I'd love to hear what you see happening in your space as well, because I love the work you do. Oh my gosh. Mostly because I love my therapist.
So I'm kind of in a weird place with my business right now. I'm transitioning what I do a little bit. So I don't know how to answer that right now because I feel like I'm in two places.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm in transition. So all of this is such valuable information, but I'm like, my head is just in.
I get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. Well, thank you, Erin, for this opportunity, and for everybody for coming. Thank you so much. If we haven't met in person yet, I would love to at some point. And thank you.
Awesome. That was amazing. If anybody needs Cynthia's contact information, you can definitely reach out to me. And I'd be happy to send you her way, and vice versa. For anybody in this group, if you want to connect with anybody, just reach out and I will help connect you. But yeah, like I said, if you're hot, come to TFN. We'll cool you down.
See you tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I have this recorded too, so if anybody wants a copy of it, let me know, and I can pass it along. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Such an awesome presentation. Thanks, everyone.
It was amazing. Thank you, Cynthia.